Yeah, that's it for the third round. All right, what was the next category we were going to talk about? Was it unseeded players who might make a run or something like that?
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
a few of those down.
All right, you go, Pilch.
Yeah, for me, it's two big servers, Opelka and Anderson, who if they come out firing, they can always do damage. I mean, they're not gonna make the semis or anything, but they could get out of the section. And then Andy Murray as well. He's pretty obvious one that, if he's back to his old self or near it, is always going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I really like the Opelka call. I think he is a serious sniff at making the quarters against Novak, to be honest. I'd back him over Goffin, and then I'd back him over Cecchinato or Harris easily. Then I'd back him over Krajinovic, and then I'd even back him over Fritz or Shapovalov, to be honest. And then obviously he might struggle against Novak, but I think this could be Opelka's breakout. But yeah, obviously he is unseeded, so it'd be a bit of a shock, but I like that call. Yep, Anderson, agree. And then obviously Andy Murray, he could do anything. He could make the semis, he could lose first round, but he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Brownie?
I had the same. Opelka, definitely the man. The unseeded, like in form. Well, obviously, other than Anderson and Murray, who are like established, they're unseeded, but they're established players. But I'm surprised Opelka isn't ranked high enough to be seeded at this point. To be honest, he probably will be after this week. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else.
Actually, do we know if Opelka's playing, because he pulled out with a knee injury?
Yeah, I looked it up this morning. I couldn't find anything saying he'd pulled out or anything. But yeah, he did withdraw in the quarterfinals against Tsitsipas. So that's maybe something we should keep an eye on. It's pretty funny how we're just taking it for granted that Opelka's going to beat David Goffin and he's like seed 7. But yeah,
mate, I'd honestly put my money on that occurring.
Yeah. I want to mention Emil Rusevori, who we've mentioned heaps. I think he's in a really soft section of that draw. It would not shock me if it's a Rusevori Rublev 4th round matchup. As you mentioned, Brownie, Berrettini's, well, we've said Goffin's going to lose and stuff, but I think Berrettini's probably the weakest of the top 10. Probably the most least consistent, maybe. But yeah, he's probably most susceptible to an upset. So I think Rusevori will beat Bedene. I think he can easily beat the winner of McDonald and Rude, and then he's most likely to play Berrettini, or he could even be up against Sagita or Humbert, who I'd back him against all of those people, to be honest. Berrettini is probably a bit of a stretch. That might be a tough one for him. I don't think he would beat Rublev in the 4th round, but we'll see. A 4th round appearance for him would be pretty special. That would be huge for his ranking. Johnny Millman, this is probably a bit of Australian bias kicking in, but I do think he's in a bit of not a weak section, but it's a very even section. So as we've mentioned, he's got Bash/V in the first one, Tiafoe Seppi in the second one, then Dimitrov, Fucsovics, or Tommy Paul in the third, which I think he could win pretty much any match out of that. He would then go into a 4th round against Medvedev, which would probably be a bit of a stretch for Johnny Millman. But yeah. And then my final one on the men's side, very stiff draw, I think, for him, but Jannik Sinner. Kachanov, he's a good player, obviously, for his rank because he's seed 11, but I think Sinner could upset him, and then all of a sudden it opens up because De Minaur's not like the best seed. I think Sinner versus De Minaur on his day could easily win that. So yeah, they're just a few shout outs. Brownie, what are you thinking on the women's side?
The clear unseeded favorite for the unseeded people, if you could say that, is Azarenka. In the women's side, it's hard at the moment. It's hard because they're absolutely decimated at the top. So, like, if a women's Grand Slam as it is full of upsets, when you only have 4 of the top 10 and like 2 of the top 8 playing in the tournament, like that makes it a whole new level.
It could be anyone. Like
the whole top 50 is seeded pretty much, and so it means that like you're not even a favorite if you're a seed. It doesn't even make that much of a difference being seeded. Like beyond like the top, especially
like
beyond
Magda Linette. is
Yeah.
seeded. Like
Beyond the
she's not a
top
seed
10
outsider.
seeds, like you may as well not have seeds after that because it's all pretty
Yeah.
equal from then on.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe after
Yeah.
like the top 16 seeds to be fair, but so it could be anyone. Like, but Azarenka obviously seems to be in form and probably in better form than 25 of the 32 seeds, and then as you said before, Swiatek or Swiatek or I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And
Stick with Eager,
yeah,
IGA.
Eager and Coco Gauff as well,
Yeah.
who can always just provide upsets. I think Coco Gauff is more likely to get through if she has harder matches. I know that's a weird thing to say, but if she plays the bigger players, if she plays Sevastova and then Kasatkina and Osaka, she could get through them. But then if she plays like someone random, let's say like Georgie, I'm just looking at the section now. If Georgie upsets Osaka, then I'm not backing Coco Gauff
Yeah.
to win it,
Tomic used to
beat
be like
that,
that.
to beat
He used to
Georgie,
like,
you know.
yeah. No, I agree with that.
Um,
I think they're the two, well, three clear ones. Swiatek is probably a bit more of a unique one, but Azarenka and Goff are probably the clear standouts. A few others I'd mention. Fernandez, we've talked about her a lot, but who knows? She's got a tough draw. She's got Ken in second round, then probably Jabeur third round, but she could, open that up. And then this is a weird one. We haven't talked about her, but I kind of forgot to mention it. Heather Watson. She's up against Konta in the first round. As I mentioned before, Konta is probably one of the most rank seeds. She's seed 9, but like she is so inconsistent.
hasn't
Like
been in form since like
I reckon she
4
would have
years.
lost a handful of first round Grand Slams as a seed. She is just so unpredictable. So I think Heather Watson could win the Battle of Britain there, and then she would take on the winner of Mikhail and Kirsteyer, which would not even be an easy match for Watson, but she could win that. And then, yeah, her draw's just soft basically till the fourth round. Then she has to play like Sabalenka, Swiatek, Azarenka, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think Watson could make a bit of a dart to the third or fourth round, but Watson's pretty unpredictable herself. So it's a tough one to call there. All right, now we're talking about seeds. We're not talking about the big boys just yet. So, like, maybe not, well, even like, I guess on the women's side, anyone could be unpredictable. But who are the seeds who people might not be expecting to make a run that you think are a sniff at going deep in the tournament, Pilch?
Well, there's an obvious one, Raonic. I think he's seed 25, I believe. He could go very deep. But my smoky is actually Taylor Fritz. I think he's got a very winnable draw, and if he plays well, also at home crowd. Well, not home crowd,
but there's no crowd.
Home court. Yeah, yeah. I think if he turns up, he can go quite deep. I reckon. I'd back him over Dennis, to be honest.
Yeah, he's in Novak's quarter, but obviously a quarterfinal run for seed 19 would be a shock. Brownie?
Someone that I'm just looking at now who
the men's is hard because
it is hard. But Dan,
there's no form, but it's still not that unpredictable.
Dan Evans, he is in Andy Murray's part of the draw, but
it's a big call.
His I mean, his form has been very good. I feel like he's always in and around and competitive again. And I feel like he's one that's generally reliable to get over the people and beat the people he should beat at the same time. And if he comes across Andy Murray, I probably won't be backing him in. But if he comes across, who knows what can happen with Andy Murray? To be honest, he could get injured or something. And if I'd back him over Auger-Aliassime to make it through to the fourth round, and then he has Dominic Thiem, so probably lose there. I don't know.
He has Sumit Nagal, mate. You keep forgetting. Sumit Nagal's making it out of that section, the great man. Yeah, like I said, even though there's a lot of unpredictability with this tournament, the men's is still men's tennis after all. There's not going to be many upsets.
People consider the men's draw decimated just because Rafa and Roger aren't there, but in reality, other than that, pretty much everyone else is there. They're not missing that many of the rest. All the depth is the same. as usual.
Yeah.
It's just the Novak, just Rafa and Roger are mainly the main difference, really.
Yeah. For me, this guy's pretty highly well seeded, but Rublev, I think, as I mentioned before, he's in that section of the draw with Berrettini. I think he could beat Paire pretty comfortably in that third round. Then he could beat Berrettini, well, whoever makes it from that section in the fourth round. And then he would have a quarterfinal against Medvedev if everything goes to plan, which would be pretty hard. But yeah, I honestly think Rublev, I'm pretty confident he'll make the quarterfinals. Could maybe even go further than that, actually. I think the form he was in at the start of the year was probably unmatched, except for obviously by Novaks and stuff. But he was in insane form. And yeah, I think Rublev, he's not a smoky, obviously. He's seed 10, everyone knows he's good. But I think he's in a pretty soft part of the draw. And I think he is someone who will probably beat the players he should beat and then has the ability to upset the players who are a bit better ranked than him. So, yeah, I like him for a quarterfinal, if not deeper run. But, yeah, the men, we'll talk about our winning predictions later. But, yeah.
I'll throw another one out there.
All right.
For me, Dominic Thiem is very hard to predict. It's I think he'll either go out, first round or go very deep, which he's tended to do recently in slams. So if he doesn't turn up, Marin Cilic's draw opens right up, and I think he'll go at least the quarters, if not potentially the semis.
Yeah, I know this sounds weird, but I think whoever wins that match makes the semis, Cilic and Thiem.
If Thiem shows up, he'll slap Cilic. But
yeah. There's Raonic and Batista good in that top section of that quarter, but I'd back them in over pretty much everyone. Obviously, Andy Murray, as we keep saying, is an unknown quantity, but yeah, I'd back in Cilic or Thiem, the winner of that, to make the semi, if I had to hedge my bets somewhere. Then in the women's side, before we get to our winning predictions, as we said, this is so random.
Yeah. So
pretty much every seed and every unseeded player has a chance to go deep. But
yeah. Just looking through the draw, it's open for everyone, really. But in the top half of the draw, I'm looking at one of Annette Kontaveit and Rybakina will be in the semi-finals, if not the final. I think Osaka's too inconsistent and hasn't been able to stretch enough matches together. And I think Kontaveit and Rybakina, one of them, they're just the typical, get through the first 4 rounds and no one really notices or really cares. And then all of a sudden there's a couple of upsets and it completely opens up. And both of them have the weapons to win big matches as well. They're not like grinders from the baseline. Generally in the women's game, the players that succeed in the Grand Slams are the ones with the weapons, not the ones who are consistent across the season. So one of them, they're both in the same quarter of the draw, and I think because Kvitova's in there as well, but Kvitova also just a bit all over the place. Obviously can bring it, but I'd back in Rybakina over Kvitova, in my opinion. But I think one of them can do big things, and if either of them make a quarter or a semi, they're as good as a chance to win it as anyone else. Obviously, other than like a Serena in the big or an Azarenka in the big matches, but really, yeah.
If I had to pick, we'll get in our winners in a second, but if you had to tell me to pick 3 people to win, I think Kontaveit would be in my 3. I think she's been in awesome form earlier this year, and then I don't know if she won a tournament, made the final of a tournament the other week. But I know she got votes in my tennis votes. I know she picked up a vote somewhere. So she's in awesome form. As you mentioned, Rybakina is a good chance. Another person in that section, she's pretty unpredictable, but Yastremska, she can be awesome on her day.
Yes.
So if it all comes together for her.
The 3 of them are all very similar.
Yeah. Kerber, we've mentioned she has a tough one first up against Tomljanovic, but then who knows? She's in Pliskova's part of the draw, but Brady could beat Pliskova, or Kerber could beat Pliskova herself. So I think Kerber, once again, she's been pretty unpredictable recently, but if she brings her game, she could be another one who could win it or go deep.
So difficult to say, to be honest, because things can open up in so many different ways. It's impossible to tell.
I also think Elise Mertens is a huge chance to make the final or the semi. She is probably, I keep saying this, but I think she is the number one informed player on the tour right now. I think she lost to Simona Halep in the final last week, and then I think she might be still in right now in Cincinnati. And she doesn't really have anyone till the fourth round, really. I think she would pretty comfortably beat Alexandrova. And then I think she'll play Jabeur in the fourth round over Kenin. I don't have much faith in Kenin, to be honest. And then I would back Mertens. Jabeur's another one who I think will go deep. But yeah, I think the winner of that could really make a fist of this Grand Slam. And I genuinely reckon Mertens is a serious sniff at making the semis or final from seed 16. And Jabeur in the same boat as well.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.